Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever built before. Its sleek black hull stretched over 2 kilometers, covered in strange patterns that seemed to bend light around them. Most of the crew didn't know what those patterns were for. Most of them didn't know what their ship could really do. "Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command," said Lieutenant COG Hai from her station. She was young, barely 25, and still believed they were on a routine patrol mission. Dae-ho envied her innocence. "Put it through." "To my ready room," Dae-ho said. He walked through the sliding doors into his private office, knowing what he would see. Admiral Choi Hai-jin's face appeared on the screen, her expression grim as always these days. "Dae-ho, the situation has gotten worse," she said without greeting. "The Virex Empire has issued their final ultimatum. Every species in the Confederation has 72 hours to surrender or face complete destruction." Dae-ho sat down heavily in his chair. The Virex had been threatening war for months, but this was different. Their grand fleet was massive beyond imagination. 50,000 warships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. Until now. "What about our allies?" Dae-ho asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Gone," Admiral Choi said, bitterly. "The Altarians withdrew their support yesterday. The Centauri Coalition signed a separate peace treaty this morning. Even the Tau Sadians, who we saved from the Hegemony War, have declared neutrality. They all think we're too primitive to be worth saving." Dae-ho felt anger burn in his chest. Humanity had joined the Galactic Confederation only 50 years ago, after first contact with the Altarian survey fleet. They had tried to be good citizens, following all the rules, respecting alien customs, sharing their technology, but to most of the galaxy, humans were still newcomers, barely evolved from animals. "Sir, what are my orders?" Dae-ho asked, though part of him didn't want to know. Admiral Choi's expression became even more serious. "You are to take the Indomitable and proceed to the Kepler system. Dr. Kim Tae-woo will brief you on the specifics when you arrive. But Dae-ho..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "What we're asking you to do, it goes against everything the Confederation stands for. If you succeed, we might save humanity. If you fail or if you refuse, we're all dead within the week." The transmission ended, leaving Dae-ho alone with his thoughts. He had known this day would come. The Indomitable wasn't built for exploration or defense. It was built for something much more dangerous. On the engineering deck, Park So-min was running diagnostics on the ship's main power core. She was brilliant, the youngest chief engineer in the Human Defense Force, and she loved her work. The Indomitable's engine was her masterpiece, a fusion of human innovation and adapted alien technology that could push the ship to incredible speeds. But the engine was only part of what made the ship special. Deep in the ship's belly, in a section marked as secondary storage, was the real reason the Indomitable existed. So-min had helped build it, though she didn't fully understand what it was supposed to do. Dr. Kim Tae-woo had been very secretive about the project. "Engineer Park," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Yoon Min-ho, her former classmate from the academy. He had been assigned to the Indomitable at the last minute, and So-min suspected he was there to watch her as much as to help. "What? Do you want Min-ho?" she asked, not looking up from her work. "I've been thinking about our cargo," he said quietly. "The sealed sections, the power requirements, the radiation shielding. This isn't a normal warship, is it?" So-min stopped working. Min-ho was smart, maybe too smart for his own good. "You know I can't discuss classified systems," she said. "So-min, we've been friends since we were teenagers. If this ship is carrying what I think it's carrying, we could all be in serious trouble. Not just with the aliens, but with our own people." Before So-min could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "All senior staff to the briefing room immediately. This is not a drill." The briefing room was small and windowless, deep in the ship's armored core. Captain Dae-ho was already there when So-min arrived along with the other department heads. The last person to enter was Dr. Kim Tae-woo, looking older than his 45 years. Dr. Kim had been a theoretical physicist before the war, working on advanced propulsion systems. But when the Vrex threat became real, he had been recruited for a much darker project. He carried a sealed case with him, which he placed on the table with shaking hands. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Deho began, "what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. The Vrex Grand Fleet is currently 3 days away from Earth. Our allies have abandoned us. Humanity stands alone against an enemy that outnumbers us 1,000 to 1. The room was silent. Everyone knew the war was going badly, but hearing it stated so bluntly was shocking. "Dr. Kim, please explain our mission," Deho said. The old scientist opened his case and pulled out a data tablet. "For the past 2 years I have been working on a theoretical weapon system, something that could level the playing field against a numerically superior enemy. The weapon is installed on this ship." Lieutenant COG Hai raised her hand hesitantly. "Sir, what kind of weapon are we talking about?" Dr. Kim looked uncomfortable. "It's based on cascade failure theory. Instead of trying to destroy enemy ships, with brute force we cause their own power systems to work against them. One ship's core failure triggers failures in nearby ships, which triggers more failures, and so on." Engineer Yoon Min Ho leaned forward. That's been illegal under galactic law for over a century. The Treaty of Proxima specifically forbids weapons that can cause uncontrolled chain reactions. The Treaty of Proxima was written by species who never faced extinction, Captain Deho said firmly. The Vrex have made it clear they intend to wipe out every human man, woman, and child in the galaxy. Under those circumstances, I believe any weapon is justified. Park So-min felt sick to her stomach. She had helped build a weapon of mass destruction without even knowing it. "How many ships could this weapon destroy?" she asked. Dr. Kim hesitated. "In theory, all of them. If the cascade reaches critical mass, it could disable or destroy the entire Vrex Grand Fleet. But the weapon has never been tested at full power. We don't know for certain what will happen." The room erupted in angry voices. Half the staff supported the mission, believing it was necessary to save their species. The other half were horrified at what they had been asked to do. Captain Deho let them argue for several minutes before calling for silence. "I understand your concerns," he said, "but understand this. We are humanity's last hope. If we fail, if we refuse this mission, every human world will burn. Our choice is simple. Use this weapon or watch our species die." Over the next several hours, the Indomitable changed course toward the Kepler system, where long-range sensors had detected the leading edge of the Vrex fleet. The crew worked in tense silence, preparing their ship for a battle unlike any in human history. In her quarters, Park So-min stared at the technical specifications for the Cascade weapon. The mathematics were elegant and terrifying. The weapon didn't fire energy beams or launch missiles. Instead, it sent out a quantum pulse that could resonate with the exotic matter used in alien power cores. Once the resonance began, it would spread from ship to ship like a disease, causing catastrophic overloads. A soft chime indicated someone was at her door. She opened it to find Dr. Kim Tae-woo standing in the corridor, looking exhausted. "May I come in?" he asked. So-min stepped aside to let him enter. "You're having second thoughts," he said. "It wasn't a question, aren't you?" So-min replied. "We're talking about potentially killing millions of beings." Dr. Kim sat down heavily on her couch. "Do you know what the Vrex did to the Epsilon Eridani colony?" he asked. "They didn't just kill the colonists. They sterilized the entire planet, burned the atmosphere, made sure nothing would ever live there again. They did it as an example to show other species what happened to those who opposed them." So-min had heard the stories but tried not to think about them. "The Vrex don't see other species as people," Dr. Kim continued. "We're vermin to them, something to be exterminated. If we don't stop them here, they'll do to Earth what they did to Epsilon Eridani. Every human world will become a dead rock floating in space." "But if we use this weapon, what does that make us?" So-min asked. "Alive," Dr. Kim said simply. "It makes us alive." On the bridge, Captain Deho studied the tactical displays showing the approaching Vrex fleet. Even seeing it on a screen was overwhelming. The enemy formation stretched across several light minutes, a wall of ships moving toward human space with unstoppable momentum. Their smallest cruisers were larger than humanity's biggest battleships. "Captain," Lieutenant Seo Ji-hai called from her station. "We're receiving multiple transmissions from the fleet. It looks like they're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Let me hear it," Daeho said. The bridge speakers crackled, and then a harsh alien voice filled the air. The ship's computer translated the words into English. "Attention, human vessels. You have violated Vrex territorial claims by your very existence. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be swift. Resist and we will make your species suffer." The Indomitable moved through space like a ghost, its stealth systems bending reality around the massive ship. Captain Lee Dae-ho hadn't slept in 36 hours. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Vrex fleet growing larger, their ships spreading across space like a disease. In the ship's secure laboratory, Dr. Kim Tae-woo was making final adjustments to the Cascade weapon. The device itself was surprisingly small, a crystalline core about the size of a human head, surrounded by complex machinery that hummed with contained energy. It looked almost beautiful, like an expensive piece of art. It was hard to believe. Something so elegant could destroy an entire fleet. "The resonance frequency is stable," reported Engineer Park So-min, reading data from her tablet. She still felt sick about what they were planning to do, but she had made her choice. Humanity's survival came first. "Power levels are at 60% and climbing." Dr. Kim nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. The laboratory was kept cold, but stress made his body temperature rise anyway. "Tell me again how you came up with this design," So-min asked. She needed to understand what they had built. The old scientist paused in his work. "It started with studying human history," Hior said. "Specifically how humans have always won wars against superior enemies. We don't fight fair. We find weaknesses and exploit them ruthlessly." He pulled up a holographic display showing the weapon's theoretical principles. Alien civilizations build their ships to be powerful and efficient. They use exotic matter cores that produce incredible amounts of energy. But that same energy can become a weakness if you know how to trigger a cascade failure. "Like dominoes falling," So-min said, beginning to understand. "Exactly. One ship's core overloads and sends out a quantum pulse. That pulse causes nearby cores to overload, which creates more pulses. The effect spreads exponentially through any fleet formation. The more ships they have, the more devastating the cascade becomes." So-min studied the calculations floating in the air between them. The mathematics were complex, but the basic principle was terrifyingly simple. "Have you run simulations on what happens to the crews?" Dr. Kim's expression darkened. "The cascade overloads their power systems, not their life support. Most of the aliens will survive, but their ships will be dead in space. Helpless." "Most of them?" "Some ships might explode if their cores can't vent the excess energy properly. We estimate maybe 10% of the fleet could be destroyed completely. The rest will just be disabled." So Min felt a small measure of relief. At least they weren't planning complete genocide. But then she thought about the thousands of ships in the Vrex fleet and realized that 10% still meant tens of thousands of dead aliens. On the bridge, Lieutenant Seo Ji-hai was monitoring enemy communications. The Vrex were confident, almost arrogant in their radio chatter. They discussed human resistance like it was a joke, comparing Earth's defense fleets to insects that needed to be swatted. "Captain," Ji-hai called softly. "I'm picking up a transmission from the Vrex flagship. Their admiral is talking to someone on Vrex Prime." "Put it through the translator," Daeho ordered. The harsh alien voice filled the bridge, converted into heavily accented English by the ship's computer. "Yes, Supreme. Leader, the human worlds will burn beautifully. My fleet will make orbit around Earth in 57 hours. I request permission to make an example of their capital city before we finish them." A different voice responded, even more cruel than the first. "Permission granted, Admiral Kethvar. Show the galaxy what happens to species that refuse the Vrex Empire's generous offer of extinction." Both aliens laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "They're not just planning to kill us. whispered Communications Officer Lee Hyo-jun. They're planning to enjoy it. Captain Dae-ho felt his last doubts disappear. The Vreks weren't soldiers fighting a war. They were monsters who took pleasure in genocide. Whatever moral questions surrounded their mission, the enemy had made their nature clear. Down in engineering, Yoon Min-ho was having a heated argument with his assistant, Petty Officer Nam Ki-jun. Both men had served together for 3 years, but the stress of their mission was tearing their friendship apart. "You can't seriously support this madness," Min-ho said, checking power distribution to the weapon systems. "We're talking about becoming the very thing we're supposed to be fighting against." Ki-jun slammed his hand on the console. "The Vreks are planning to murder every human being in the galaxy. My sister lives on Tau Ceti Prime. My parents are on Luna Colony. If we don't stop these monsters, everyone I care about will die. And if we use this weapon, we become monsters ourselves," Min-ho replied. "There has to be another way. Some kind of negotiation. Some compromise we haven't considered." "You want to compromise with genocidal aliens?" Ki-jun asked incredulously. "What exactly would you offer them? Half of humanity? Which half do you think deserves to live?" Before Min-ho could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "All hands, this is the captain. We are now 12 hours from weapon range of the enemy fleet. All departments report readiness status immediately." The next few hours passed in tense preparation. Every system on the Indomitable was checked and rechecked, the Cascade weapon charged to full power, its crystalline core glowing with contained energy that made the air around it shimmer like a heat mirage. In the ship's small medical bay, Dr. Oh Kyung-soo was treating crew members for stress-related symptoms. Several people had developed severe headaches, others couldn't keep food down, and a few had requested sedatives to help them sleep. The psychological pressure of their mission was taking its toll. Dr. Oh had worked with Dr. Kim Tae-woo years ago before the war started. They had been friends once, colleagues who shared a passion for theoretical physics. But when Kim was recruited for the weapon project, their friendship had ended. Oh believed that some knowledge was too dangerous to pursue. "Doctor," called Ensign Young Min Young from one of the medical beds. She was barely 19, assigned to the ship's sensor array. "Is it true what they're saying? That our weapon could destroy star systems?" Dr. O checked her vital signs, noting elevated heart rate and blood pressure. "Where did you hear that?" "The engineers have been talking. They say the cascade effect might not stop with the fleet. That it could spread to planets, space stations, anything with exotic matter cores." Dr. O felt cold dread settle in his stomach. He had heard the same rumors, and they terrified him more than the approaching Vreks fleet. "I don't know," he said honestly. "The weapon has never been tested at this scale. Then how do we know it will work at all?" "We don't," Dr. O said quietly. "We're gambling with the fate of the galaxy on untested technology." In his ready room, Captain Dae-ho was reviewing the latest intelligence reports on the Vreks fleet. The enemy formation was even larger than initial estimates suggested. Long-range sensors now counted over 52,000 ships, ranging from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts that stretched 5 kilometers from bow to stern. Admiral Choi Hee-jin appeared on his communication screen, her face drawn with exhaustion. "Dae-ho, I have an update on the situation back home. The Vreks advanced scouts have reached the outer colonies. 3 worlds have already fallen." "What happened to the populations?" Dae-ho asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Gone," Admiral Choi said simply. "Every human settlement has been reduced to ash. They're not taking prisoners, not even offering surrender terms. This is extermination, pure and simple." Dae-ho closed his eyes. Any remaining moral doubts about their mission evaporated. The Vreks had made their intentions crystal clear. "There's something else," Admiral Choi continued. "We've been monitoring alien communications across the galaxy. Other species are watching this conflict very carefully. If we lose, they know the Vreks will come for them next. But if we win using forbidden weapons, they might unite against us out of fear." "So we're damned either way?" "Possibly. But at least if we win, we'll be alive to face the consequences." Back in the weapon laboratory, Park So-min was running final diagnostics when she noticed something troubling in the cascade calculations. She ran the numbers again, hoping she had made an error. She hadn't. "Dr. Kim," she called urgently, "I need you to look at something." The old scientist hurried over to her workstation. "What is it?" "The cascade effect. I've been modeling how it will spread through the enemy formation. But the quantum resonance doesn't just affect ship cores. It affects any exotic matter within range." Dr. Kim studied her calculations, his face growing pale. "Are you saying the effect might spread beyond the fleet?" "I'm saying it definitely will spread beyond the fleet. The Vrex have mining stations, supply depots, even civilian ships in this system. The cascade will hit all of them." "How many civilian casualties are we talking about?" So-min's voice was barely a whisper. "Maybe 1,000,000, maybe more." Dr. Kim sat down heavily, suddenly looking, every one of his 45 years. The weapon he had spent 2 years developing was even more terrible than he had imagined. "There's more," So-min continued reluctantly. "The cascade might not stop in this system. If it reaches critical resonance, it could propagate through hyperspace to other systems. We might accidentally destroy Vrex civilian populations across half their empire." For a long moment, both humans sat in horrified silence. The quantum pulse spread outward from the Indomitable like ripples in a pond. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Vrex fleet continued firing, their massive guns hurling death at the lone human ship. Captain Lee Dae-ho gripped his command chair as the ship shook under the bombardment. "Shields down to 60%, reported Lieutenant COG Hai, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Hull damage on decks 7 through 12. Then the cascade began. The first Vrex ship to die was a destroyer less than 50 kilometers away. Its exotic matter core suddenly flared brilliant white, then went dark. The ship's weapons fell silent, its engines stopped, and it began drifting helplessly through space. One ship disabled, called Tactical Officer Nam Hae-rin from her station. The quantum pulse is spreading to nearby vessels. A second ship died, then a third. The effect spread outward in all directions, jumping from ship to ship like lightning, seeking the path of least resistance. Each disabled vessel sent out its own quantum pulse, amplifying the cascade and spreading it further through the fleet. On the Indomitable's bridge, the crew watched in fascinated horror as thousands of Rex warships simply stopped functioning. The massive dreadnoughts that had seemed invincible moments before were now dark silhouettes against the stars, their crews trapped inside dead metal hulls. "My God," whispered Engineer Park So-min, who had come to the bridge to monitor the weapons' effects. "It's working better than we calculated." But as the cascade spread, something unexpected began to happen. The quantum pulses didn't stop when they reached the edge of the fleet. They continued outward, seeking new targets throughout the star. System of Rex supply depot orbiting the system's third planet suddenly went dark. Mining platforms scattered throughout the asteroid belt shut down one by one. Even civilian transports carrying families and cargo were caught in the expanding wave of destruction. "Captain," So-min said urgently, "the cascade is affecting everything, with exotic matter cores, not just military targets." Captain Dae-ho felt sick to his stomach. They had come here to stop a military threat, not to massacre innocent civilians. "How many non-combatants are in the system?" So-min checked her readings. "Unknown, but there are at least 200 civilian installations within the cascade's current range." On the main screen, they could see the effects spreading across space. What had started as a surgical strike against the Vrex military was becoming something much larger and more terrible. Entire space habitats were going dark, their populations trapped without power or life support. In the depths of the Indomitable, Dr. Kim Tae-woo was frantically trying to shut down the cascade weapon. But the device had been designed to discharge its full energy load in a single burst. There was no way to stop the effect once it had begun. "The resonance is self-sustaining now," he reported to the bridge. "It's feeding off the exotic matter in the disabled ships and growing stronger. Can we contain it somehow?" Captain Dae-ho asked desperately. "I don't know," Dr. Kim admitted. "This is uncharted territory. The cascade has grown beyond anything we simulated. The Vrex flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Eternal Conquest, was one of the last ships to be affected. Admiral Kethvar stood on his command bridge, watching in disbelief as his grand fleet was systematically destroyed by a weapon he had never imagined possible. "Report!" he barked at his communications officer. "All ships in sectors 7 through 15 have gone dark, Admiral. The effect is spreading toward our position. Estimate 12 minutes until it reaches the flagship." Kethvar had commanded fleets for over 30 years. He had conquered entire star systems and wiped out civilizations that dared to oppose the Vrex Empire, but he had never faced anything like this. "Send an emergency transmission to all remaining ships," he ordered. "Full retreat, maximum speed." But it was too late. The cascade moved faster than the fleeing ships, overtaking them one by one. Within an hour, the entire Vrex Grand Fleet was drifting helplessly in space, their crews alive but trapped in powerless metal tombs. On the Indomitable, the crew watched the aftermath of their victory with mixed emotions. They had saved humanity from extinction, but at a cost none of them had anticipated. "Damage report," Captain Deho ordered. "Shields are back online," reported Chief Engineer Yoon Minho. "Hull breaches on 6 decks, but nothing critical. We can repair most of the damage with what we have on board." "What about casualties?" "Surprisingly light, sir. 15 injured, no deaths. The Vrex stopped shooting once their ships went dark." Deho nodded grimly. The human casualties were minimal, but he knew the alien death toll would be much higher. Ships without power meant no heat, no air recycling, no waste processing. If rescue didn't come soon, thousands of Vrex crew members would die slow deaths in the darkness. "Communications, see if you can raise the Vrex flagship," he ordered. Lieutenant Co. Ji-Hai worked at her station for several minutes before shaking her head. "No response, sir. Their communications array is dead like everything else. Try emergency." "Frequencies. If they have battery-powered emergency systems, they should be able to receive us." After another few minutes, Ji-Hai looked up with surprise. "I'm getting something, sir. Very weak signal from the flagship." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and alien, but the translation software made the words understandable. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Kethvar of the Vrex Empire. What have you done to my fleet?" Captain Deho took a deep breath before responding. "Admiral, we have used a cascade weapon to disable your ships. Your crews are alive, but your fleet is no longer operational." "Impossible, no such weapon exists." "As you can see, it does exist. Admiral, I'm prepared to offer you a choice. Order the immediate withdrawal of all Vrex forces from human space, and we will provide technical assistance to restore power to your ships. Refuse, and your entire fleet will drift here until their life support runs out." There was a long pause before Kethvar responded. "You would murder 50,000 helpless prisoners?" "You were planning to murder billions of helpless humans," Deho replied coldly. "But unlike you, we don't take pleasure in genocide. Accept our terms, and your people will live." In his darkened command center, Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display showing his dead fleet. Every ship was a dark spot on the screen, powerless and vulnerable. He had never experienced defeat on this scale. The Vrex Empire had not suffered such a loss in over 3 centuries, but what terrified him most was not the military defeat. It was the implications of the weapon the humans had used. If they could disable the Grand Fleet so easily, what else could they do? Could they reach across space to attack Vrex Prime itself? "Human captain," he said finally, "you must understand that I cannot make decisions for the entire Empire. I am only a fleet commander." "Then contact your superiors," Deho replied. "Tell them that humanity possesses weapons capable of neutralizing any fleet they send against us. Tell them that continued aggression will result in consequences they cannot imagine." The communication ended, leaving both ships in tense silence. Hours later, as the Indomitable waited for a response, Park So-min made a disturbing discovery. The cascade effect had not stopped spreading. It was moving beyond the immediate star system, following hyperspace routes to other Vrex installations. "Captain, you need to see this," she called from her monitoring station. Deho hurried over to look at her readings. "What am I looking at?" "Quantum resonance readings from across Vrex space. The cascade is propagating through their empire's hyperspace network. Every system with significant exotic matter concentrations is being affected." Deho felt the blood drain from his face. "Are you telling me we've accidentally attacked the entire Vrex empire?" "Not attacked exactly, but disabled. Their military, bases, their supply depots, their major industrial centers. Anything that uses exotic matter cores is going dark." Dr. Kim Tae-woo arrived on the bridge looking haggard and defeated. "I've been running calculations on the cascade propagation," he said quietly. "The effect will reach approximately 40% of Vrex space before it finally dissipates." "How many casualties?" Captain Deho asked, dreading the answer. "Military? Maybe 1,000,000. Civilian?" Dr. Kim shook his head. "Impossible to estimate. It depends on how quickly they can restore power to their habitats and colonies." The bridge fell, silent as everyone absorbed the magnitude of what they had unleashed. They had set out to stop a military invasion and accidentally crippled an entire interstellar civilization. "Sir," Lieutenant Ji-hai said quietly, "I'm receiving multiple transmissions from across the galaxy. It seems other species have detected the quantum pulses." "What are they saying?" "Most of them are frightened. The Altarians are demanding an explanation. The Centauri Coalition has recalled all their ships to home space. Even the Tau Sadians are asking what kind of weapon we used." Captain Deho realized that humanity had just announced to the galaxy that they possessed world-ending technology. Every alien civilization would now see humans not as primitive newcomers, but as a potential threat to be feared or eliminated. A new transmission came in from the Vrex flagship. Admiral Kethavar's voice was defeated, hollow with the weight of catastrophic loss. "Human Captain, I have received new orders from Vrex Prime. The Emperor has authorized me to negotiate terms for..." 3 days after the Cascade weapon had crippled the Vrex Grand Fleet, the Indomitable remained in the debris field that had once been humanity's greatest threat. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge, watching repair shuttles move between the darkened alien vessels like mechanical insects. The work was slow and dangerous. Each Vrex ship needed its exotic matter core carefully restarted to prevent another Cascade failure. Human engineers worked alongside grateful but confused alien crews, trying to communicate through translation devices and hand gestures. "Status." "Report," Dae-ho ordered. Engineer Park So-min looked up from her tablet, exhaustion clear in her eyes. She hadn't slept properly since the weapon fired. "We've restored power to 63 ships so far. That's about 1,200 crew members, who now have working life support again. And the others? Still working on them. But Captain, some of the larger ships have been drifting without power for too long. We've found 17 vessels where the crew didn't make it." Dae-ho closed his eyes. 17 ships meant thousands of dead aliens. They had died not in battle but slowly as their air ran out and their ship's temperature dropped below freezing. It was exactly the kind of death he had hoped to avoid. "The Vrex are being surprisingly cooperative," reported Tactical Officer Nam Hae-rin. "Admiral Kethavar has been providing us with technical specifications and crew locations. He seems genuinely grateful for our help. It was a strange situation. Less than a week ago, the Vrex had been planning to burn every human world to ash. Now they were working together to prevent a humanitarian disaster. The Cascade weapon had not just disabled ships, it had completely changed the relationship between their species." Dr. Kim Tae-woo entered the bridge, looking older than his 45 years. The stress of the past few days had turned his hair noticeably grayer. "Captain, I have an update on the Cascade spread throughout Vrex space. How bad is it?" Dr. Kim pulled up a holographic display showing the Vrex Empire. Large sections were marked in red, indicating systems where the Cascade effect had disabled infrastructure. 43% of their territory has been affected. Industrial production has dropped by 70%. Their military capabilities have been reduced by roughly 90%. And civilian casualties? Still unknown. The VRX government isn't being completely honest about the damage, but we estimate somewhere between 50,000 and 200,000 deaths, mostly from life support failures on space habitats and mining platforms. The bridge fell silent. They had accidentally killed more civilians than all the human casualties in the previous war combined. There's something else, Dr. Kim continued reluctantly. The cascade has had an unexpected side effect. The quantum disruption has created a dead zone around this system where hyperspace travel is impossible. Captain Deho frowned. What does that mean exactly? It means any ship trying to enter or leave hyperspace in this region will fail. The space-time distortion is too severe. This entire system is now cut off from the rest of the galaxy until the effect dissipates. How long will that take? 6 months, maybe longer. Park So-min looked up from her work. So we're trapped here with the Vrex fleet? All of us together, Dr. Kim confirmed. The cascade didn't just disable their ships, it created a prison that holds everyone. The implications were staggering. The Indomitable was stuck in a dead system with 50,000 hostile aliens, unable to return home or call for help. If the Vrex decided to break their agreement and attack manually, there would be nowhere to run. But Admiral Kethvar seemed to have no interest in renewed hostilities. Over the next several days, he worked closely with the human crew to coordinate repair efforts. The proud Vrex commander had been humbled by his defeat and the realization of how completely outmatched his empire was. On the 5th day, he requested permission to come aboard the Indomitable. Captain Deho agreed, curious to meet his former enemy face to face. Admiral Kethvar was typical of his species, tall and angular with gray skin and eyes like black stones. He wore a simple uniform rather than the ornate armor Vrex commanders usually favored. When he spoke, his voice was tired and respectful. Captain Deho, he said through a translation device, I have come to thank you personally for your assistance with our ships. You're welcome, Deho replied carefully, though I should point out that we're only fixing damage we caused in the first place. Kethvar's expression, difficult to read on an alien face, seemed almost sad. No, Captain, you are fixing damage that I caused. If I had not brought my fleet to attack your people, none of this would have happened. They walked together through the ship's corridors, the Vrex admiral taking careful note of human technology and design. Despite everything, he was still a military officer gathering intelligence. Your species fascinates me, Kethvar said eventually. We studied human history before the invasion. Your people have never been the strongest or fastest or most numerous, yet you always find ways to win against superior enemies. Desperation makes people creative, Deho replied. Perhaps, but I think it is something more than that. Your species refuses to accept defeat, even when defeat is certain. It is admirable. They reached the observation lounge, where large windows showed the Vrex fleet floating helplessly in space. Many ships now had lights on again, signs that human repair efforts were succeeding. Admiral, Deho said carefully, what will happen when we're all able to leave this system? Will your empire honor the ceasefire? Kethvar was quiet for a long time. The Emperor is old and proud. He has ruled for over 2 centuries by showing strength and never backing down from a challenge. Your weapon has made him look weak in front of the entire galaxy. Are you saying he'll want revenge? I am saying that pride is often more dangerous than hatred. The Emperor may decide that losing face is worse than losing ships. It was not the answer Deho had hoped for. Even after their crushing defeat, the Vrex might not be ready for real peace. Over the following weeks, a strange routine developed. Human repair teams worked around the clock to restore Vrex ships, while the alien crews shared technical knowledge and cultural information with their former enemies. Some of the younger officers from both sides even developed friendships of sorts. Engineer Yoon Min Ho, who had initially opposed the Cascade weapon, found himself working closely with a Vrex engineer named Thekval. Despite the language barrier and vast cultural differences, they discovered they shared a passion for propulsion technology. Your species' approach to engineering is fascinating, Thekval said through his translator during one of their work sessions. Vrex design emphasizes power and durability. Human design emphasizes flexibility and creativity. Different philosophies, Minho replied, adjusting a power coupling on the alien ship. We had to learn to make do with less, so we got good at making things work in unexpected ways. Like your cascade weapon, no Vrex engineer would have thought of using our own power systems against us. Minho paused in his work. Does that bother you? That we used forbidden technology? Thekval considered the question. I have been thinking about that. Your species was facing extinction. In such circumstances, perhaps no weapon can be truly forbidden. It was a perspective that helped Minho deal with his own guilt about the weapon. They had broken galactic law, but they had done it to save their people. Sometimes survival required making choices that peacetime morality couldn't accommodate. Meanwhile, Park So-min was dealing with a different kind of problem. The cascade weapon's quantum resonance was continuing to affect the local space-time matrix. What had started as a localized hyperspace disruption was slowly expanding. The dead zone is growing, she reported to Captain Daeho during one of their daily briefings. At its current rate of expansion, it will encompass 3 neighboring star systems within the next year. Can we stop it? Maybe. Dr. Kim and I have been working on a theoretical solution. If we can generate an inverse quantum pulse, we might be able to neutralize the resonance field. What would that require? Park So-min looked uncomfortable. We would need to modify the cascade weapon to run in reverse. Essentially, we'd have to fire it again, but with opposite polarity. The thought of activating the terrible weapon a second time made everyone nervous. But if they didn't act, the expanding dead zone might eventually cut off entire sectors of the galaxy from hyperspace travel. Dr. Kim Tae-woo joined the conversation, looking haggard from weeks of non-stop work. There's another problem, he said. We're getting reports from across the galaxy about other species trying to replicate our cascade technology. Have any of them succeeded? Daeho asked. Not yet, but it's only a matter of time. The basic principles aren't that complex once you know they're possible. What happens when everyone has cascade weapons? Mutually assured destruction, Dr. Kim said grimly. Any fleet engagement could result in both sides being completely disabled. It might actually prevent wars, or it might make them incredibly devastating. The strategic implications were mind-boggling. Humanity had not just won a single battle. They had potentially changed the nature of space warfare forever. As the weeks passed and more Vrex ships came back online, tensions began to rise. The aliens were grateful for human help, but they were also ashamed of their defeat and worried about the future. Proud. 6 months later, the hyperspace dead zone finally began to weaken. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the first successful hyperspace jump in half a year. A small Vrex scout ship disappeared in a flash of light, carrying news of the cascade weapon to the rest of the galaxy. The months of isolation had changed everyone. Human and Vrex crews had worked together so closely that some had formed genuine friendships. The fear and hatred that had driven them to war had been replaced by wary respect and shared exhaustion. Final repair count, reported Engineer Park So-min. 47,216 Vrex ships restored to operational status. 2,784 ships could not be repaired due to core damage or crew loss. It was a massive undertaking that had pushed both species to their limits. The humans had shared advanced technology and repair techniques. The Vrex had provided raw materials and labor. Together, they had accomplished something neither side could have managed alone. Admiral Kethvar came to the bridge for his final meeting with Captain Dae-ho. The Vrex commander looked different after 6 months of cooperation, less arrogant, more thoughtful. Working alongside humans had changed his perspective on the galaxy. Captain, he said through his translator, my remaining ships are ready to depart. We will begin our journey back to Vrex space within the hour. Safe travels, Admiral. I hope this is the beginning of peace between our peoples. Kethvar paused before responding. I will report to the Emperor exactly what I have seen here. Your species showed mercy when you could have chosen revenge. You helped repair our ships when you could have let us die. These are not the actions of the monsters our propaganda described. What do you think the Emperor's response will be? Unknown. But I will recommend that the Vrex Empire seek formal diplomatic relations with humanity. The alternative. Continued. Conflict with a species that possesses cascade weapons is unthinkable. After the Vrex fleet departed, the Indomitable began its own journey home. But Captain Deho knew they were not returning to the same galaxy they had left. News of the cascade weapon had spread throughout known space, fundamentally changing how every civilization viewed humanity. The first sign of this change came when they encountered a patrol fleet from the Altarian Republic. The same species that had abandoned humanity during the Vrex invasion now approached with a massive escort and formal diplomatic protocols. Human vessel Indomitable, came the transmission. This is Admiral Vextar of the Altarian Third Fleet. We request permission to escort you safely to neutral territory for diplomatic discussions. Captain Deho was amused by the sudden politeness. Permission granted, Admiral, though I should point out that we're quite capable of defending ourselves. Of course, Captain, we meant no offense. The Republic simply wishes to ensure that no misunderstandings occur during your transit through our space. Translation: they were terrified that the humans might decide to test their cascade weapon on former allies who had betrayed them. Over the next several days, the Indomitable was joined by escort fleets from 6 different alien civilizations. Everyone wanted to show respect for the ship that had single-handedly changed galactic power balance. Everyone was also making sure the humans knew they were being watched. Dr. Kim Tae-woo spent most of the journey working on detailed reports about the cascade weapon's effects. His data would be crucial for future human foreign policy, but he also spent time reflecting on what he had created. I set out to build a weapon that could save our species, he confided to Park So-min during one of their conversations. I never imagined it would make us the most feared civilization in the galaxy. Are you sorry you built it? She asked. No, he said after a long pause. Without it, humanity would be extinct. But I am sorry about the fear it has created. Fear makes people do desperate things. We may have won this war only to start a dozen others. Park So-min understood his concern. Every species in the galaxy was now working frantically to develop defenses against cascade weapons or to build similar devices themselves. The technological arms race that followed would reshape civilization for generations. When they finally reached Earth space, the Indomitable found a hero's welcome waiting for them. Every human ship in the system had formed an honor guard. Space stations fired ceremonial salvos. Messages of congratulation flooded their communication channels. But Captain Deho felt no joy at the celebration. He had saved his species, but the cost had been higher than anyone realized. Admiral Choi Hee-jin met them at Luna Station, looking both relieved and worried. Welcome home, heroes, she said with a tired smile. The President wants to award you all medals. The press is calling you the saviors of humanity. And what does the intelligence community call us? Deho asked. Admiral Choi's smile faded. The most dangerous people in human history. Do you realize that 17 different alien civilizations have demanded that we surrender the cascade weapon technology? 3 others have offered to buy it for incredible sums, and at least 5 species are threatening preemptive strikes to prevent us from building more. What's our official response? We're still deciding. The political situation is complex. Over. The following days, Captain Deho was briefed on how much the galaxy had changed during his absence. The Galactic Confederation had effectively collapsed as member species withdrew to develop their own defensive strategies. Trade networks had broken down as civilizations became too suspicious of each other to maintain normal commerce. Several species had attempted to develop their own cascade weapons with disastrous results. The hegemony had accidentally destroyed 3 of their own research stations. The Centauri Coalition had created a runaway cascade that sterilized an entire moon. Fear and desperation were driving normally rational civilizations to take increasingly dangerous risks. In a closed session with the Human Defense Council, Deho learned about the most disturbing development of all. We have credible intelligence that at least 6 alien civilizations are considering a joint attack on Earth. reported Intelligence Director Zhang Haiwan. They're calling it a preventive intervention to eliminate the cascade threat before we can build more weapons. How many ships are they talking about? Asked Admiral Choi. Conservative estimate? 200,000 vessels from multiple species. They're planning to hit us with everything they have before we can deploy another cascade weapon. Captain Daeho felt cold dread settle in his stomach. They had defeated the Rex Empire only to face an even larger coalition of terrified enemies. What about our diplomatic efforts, he asked. Mixed results, admitted Foreign Minister Kim Hyo-sun. Some species want to negotiate. Others are too frightened to consider anything except military action, and a few are trying to play both sides, hoping to benefit from the chaos. The meeting continued for hours, discussing defensive strategies and diplomatic options, but the conclusion was unavoidable. Humanity was more isolated and vulnerable than ever before. 3 days later, President Nam Soo-jin called a press conference that was broadcast throughout human space. Her speech was brief, but historic. My Sayo. Fellow humans, she began. The cascade weapon that saved our species has also made us the target of fear and suspicion throughout the galaxy. Some alien civilizations see us as a threat that must be eliminated. Others want to use our technology for their own purposes. Neither option is acceptable. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. Therefore, I am announcing that humanity will voluntarily place all cascade weapon technology under international control. We will work with any peaceful species to develop defensive countermeasures. We will never use cascade weapons except in cases of immediate existential threat to our species. The announcement sent shockwaves through both human and alien societies. Some humans were outraged at giving up their military advantage. Many aliens remained suspicious, believing it was a deception. But slowly, carefully, a new galactic order began to emerge. The cascade weapon had destroyed the old balance of power, but it had also forced every species to reconsider their approach to interstellar relations. Wars became much more dangerous when any conflict could escalate to system-wide devastation. Captain Daeho retired from active duty 6 months after returning to Earth. He had been offered promotion to Admiral, command of the new Cascade Defense Force, even a position in the government. But he declined them all. Instead, he returned to his home village on Mars Colony, where he spent his time growing vegetables and teaching at the local school. Sometimes reporters would ask him about the war, about the terrible weapon he had unleashed, about whether he regretted his choices. His answer was always the same. I did what was necessary to save my species. History will judge whether it was right or wrong. Dr. Kim Tae-woo also withdrew from public life, accepting voluntary exile to a research station on the edge of human space. His cascade weapon research notes were sealed in the deepest vaults of Earth's most secure facilities, accessible only to a handful of scientists sworn to absolute secrecy. Engineer Park So-min became the head of the Cascade Countermeasures Project, working with alien scientists to develop defenses against the terrible weapon she had helped perfect. It was fitting. Work, using her knowledge of destruction to protect innocent lives.